Hello and welcome back to Learn Energy Healing. Today I'm going to be talking about how to train yourself to see better through your physical eyes. A lot of people talk about the sixth chakra or the third eye chakra, that when you open that up more that you can see more. And once again I'm highlighting that there's actually two different forms of vision. I've talked about the inner vision, so in other words using your pineal gland, which is just like a physical eye by the way, except for it doesn't have a hole to let light in, which sits in the middle of your head. That's what you use. That's the eye, if you like, you use when you are seeing things in your mind, imagining things, you could say, in inverted commas. So if you want to train yourself to be better at using that, the internal vision, then go back and look at some previous videos on how I encourage you to help get better at that. This video is more about using the physical eye, so being able to see more with the physical eyes, including auras. So let's start with some basic advice. Everything requires energy. So if you're wasting energy through holding on to traumas, limiting beliefs, that kind of thing, then yes, there's less energy to go elsewhere to awaken potentials. So please do work on that. But also the very obvious thing here is if you're not looking after your physical body, if you're eating junk, taking pharmaceuticals, smoking, not getting enough rest and sleep, not exercising, not getting enough light in the middle of the day, and so on and so on and so on, then don't be surprised if certain abilities, certain senses take a lot longer to wake up. So please look after yourself. Your physical eyes, which is what you're going to be using in this particular video, requires energy, it requires nutrients. And for those extra genes to be activated to make the extra rod and cone cells, which has been discovered in science by the way, it requires more energy to keep more genes active and to have more of those rod and cone cells in your eyes active to see more. So that's number one, look after yourself physically, as well as the energetic. The second thing I will say is doing the body scan technique. So remember I did a previous video on Goenka's type of Vipassana where you do a body scan and you scan through your body. I would suggest that you pay particular attention to the eyes and the eye sockets, so the muscles around the eyes, and also the eye itself, the muscles within the eye that control opening and closing of the pupil. See how much you can feel of that, see how much you can sense it, see how well you can see it, because that will give you a lot of information on how well you are relaxing your eyes, which is very important for the exercises I'm about to give. So body scanning, really feeling the surface of the eye, feeling the pupil, feeling the muscle within the eye, but also the muscles around the eye and the eye socket. Very useful. And you may find it useful going along the optic nerve as well, back to the brainstem. That might be useful too for you. So yes. So what is this vision I'm talking about? It's pretty much what I've just kind of highlighted. You're awakening more of your genetic potential, but also so that you can, receive more information through the eye itself. But also there is an element of this where your brain is able to process more information coming from the eye. So I remember many decades ago hearing this from science that, your eyes can easily see a candlelight from I think it was 2 miles away. I think that's what they said. But you can't see the candlelight necessarily, depending on the lighting conditions, time of the day, because you're not able to process all the information that comes through the eyes in your brain. So part of this process of awakening this ability to see through your eyes is opening up the brain a bit more so that you can process more of that information. So you can see the aura through your physical eyes, and this is what I'm pretty sure that most people are here for that particular reason, to start to see auras and other phenomena through their physical eyes. Usually it's easiest for people when they start to see what's called the etheric body, or the etheric layer, if you like, of the aura, according to the Barbara Brennan model. So this is the density of the aura that's closest to your physical body, maybe an inch, possibly 2 inches away from the body, depending on how vibrant it is. It's very closely related to the physical body, so it's much close to the physical realm and therefore easier to tune into. That's usually the first density that people are able to start seeing with their physical eyes. Usually it appears a bit like glass, you know, you can see through it, but you can definitely tell that there's something there. Or if you've looked above a flame, a candle flame, sometimes you can see almost like a plasma. So you can see through it, but you can definitely tell that there's something there. I'm not talking about looking at the actual flame itself, but above the flame. There's almost like a plasma there that you can start to sense. And that's my first tip, actually, using candle flames to sort of start to perceive something beyond what you normally would. So usually it is see-through, but you can tell that there's an energy there that you can sense, and it doesn't have a color usually to start with. With most people, usually it is a clear, transparent, opalescent, I guess, in some cases. And then later on, some people start to see it, especially if you've been on the Barbara Brennan course or read her books or have come across people who have more of that mindset. Most people start to say that it takes on over time as they start getting better at seeing it, and more of a bluish color to it. But there are people that I've come across, including people off the Barbara Brennan course, by the way, who actually say that no, they don't see it as blue, they see it as red. So there's a lot of different beliefs, a lot of different ways people can sense things. So don't feel that if you're not seeing blue that you're doing it wrong. It's just that you're interpreting it in a different way, maybe. Personally, I don't see red or blue. Even after all this time, for me, it's still clear, you know, opalescent sort of a colour, if I can call it a colour. So, you know, there's no right or wrong way to see it. The other thing to mention is that this etheric density of the aura, usually when people start to see it, it has a bit of a pulse to it. So in other words, it brightens and it darkens. And quite often that goes along with the craniosacral pulse, if you've ever been into that. So if you've ever researched craniosacral or experienced craniosacral therapy yourself, you may notice that there's a gentle pulse where things sort of expand for so many seconds, and then there's a contraction for so many seconds. So similarly with the etheric field, the etheric part of the aura, you'll notice that it will brighten for so many seconds, and then it will gradually darken for so many seconds. And usually when you start seeing the etheric layer, it may well be that it disappears for those seconds where it dims for you, and then it starts to appear again for a few seconds. So be aware of that, because it won't be there the same intensity the entire time. It's changing according to how the body is changing. And of course, the whole aura is in constant flux, depending on what you're thinking, what you're doing, how you're breathing, and so on, how vibrant your health is. Which brings me on to the next point. You know, it's easier to start seeing the aura on something that has a lot of vibrancy to it, a lot of energy, a lot of health. So a lot of people find that learning to see through their physical eyes the aura is easier with plants, especially big plants like trees, you know, very healthy, vibrant plants, very strong energy field. So trees are a fantastic thing to start using, to start looking at, to see the etheric field. And also people are pretty good as well. You might find it easier with some people than others, depending on how their health is and so on, but not necessarily the case. So there's a few points to consider there. And before I get stuck into some exercises, which I'll move on to a different camera so you can see, have patience with it. You know, don't expect it to happen straight away. It's the same with many, many spiritual practices. Very similar to training in the gym. You know, don't expect that the first time you do it, that something's going to happen straight away and you're suddenly going to see everything. Just like in the gym, you'd have one workout, you're not going to see an increase in your muscles. You're not suddenly going to be, really big and strong and healthy and fast just from one workout in the gym. So patience, regularity and consistency is the key, as with anything that's worth learning. Same with meditation. If you've done that for many years, you may notice that, it takes time to get good at meditation. And the more consistent you are, the more regular you are, the quicker things will happen. Rather than just doing it for a short period and then going, oh, it's not working, and then give up, and then maybe attempt it another time. So consistency and regularity is key. And have patience. Okay, so I will pick up my phone and start videoing in a different format, and I will see you in a second. Okay, so swapping to my phone camera. So this is the place in Sweden we're currently renting from. So for a lot of the exercises I'm about to show you, in order to see the aura, we're going to need a good background. So I'm just going into a couple of different rooms just to look at different walls. So this is an example of a wall I wouldn't use. So even though this wall is a nice light colour, a light grey colour, it's got a pattern on it. So you can probably see that, hopefully, in the camera there. So it's not an ideal wall to have as a backdrop to start seeing auras because of the pattern. So one good example of not what to use. In this house we don't have an ideal wall, but close. So I'm giving you a few different options here. So here in the kitchen we have kind of a light green sort of grey colour. So that would be a good option if you didn't have a white wall, is that sort of wall there. So even though it isn't white, it's still light enough, and of course it has no pattern to disrupt you seeing the aura. So that would be quite a good option there. Another possible option would be the light grey of a cabinet, but obviously we've got different colours and edges that might disrupt your viewing of someone's aura. So in this particular house, what I've decided to do, doors are other options, because a lot of doors do tend to be white in different countries, but again, we have edges to disrupt possibly seeing something. So yeah, so I've decided that probably the best thing, lovely view out today of the snow and the river, is to use the bathroom wall here. So it's not perfect, because there are tiles and lines that could disrupt you seeing it, but it's white and it covers enough of an area so that you can more likely see the aura in. So this is the option we're using here. Okay, so the first exercise you can try is having another person. So I've got my wife holding the phone at the moment. So if you do have access to another person, whether it be a partner or a friend, ideally a partner or someone you live with, so you can do it more regularly, of course, but they can stand opposite you, looking at you against a white background, so they can practice looking at the aura, and then you can swap. So what you do in this situation is that the person who's trying to see the aura or training themselves to see the aura ideally looks into the middle of the face or the middle of the body and relaxes the eyes. Okay, so the idea is that if you bring the center of your vision to the side of someone's head, so if you're looking here trying to look directly at the aura, you're probably not going to see it, because your central vision is so used to looking at precise details in the physical world. So you don't really want to be using your central vision too much. You want to bring your focus and you want to look in the middle of their face or the middle of their body and relax your eyes and be aware of what's in your peripheral vision. Your peripheral vision is where you are most likely to start seeing the aura. Okay, so when you're looking at the centre of the face or the centre of the body, just be aware that the etheric density of the aura, the one that's closest to the physical body, does have a pulse. So it may get brighter for a few seconds, 4 seconds, 8 seconds maybe, depends on the person, and then it will get harder to see gradually. So it will gradually get harder to see. So be aware of the pulse and know that you're going to have to relax your eyes and stay there for a number of seconds to at least start to make it easier to see the aura. Okay? So remember, focus on the middle of the face, middle of the body, relax the eyes, be aware of what's in your peripheral vision, of what's next to the person's head, because the aura is going to come out an inch or two at the most. The etheric layer, which is the easiest to see, it's not going to come very far away from the body, but being able to see further from the body will give you the contrast between what colour is here and what colour is here. Okay, if that makes sense. So that's exercise number 1, having a partner, having a friend, having them stand against a white wall and you looking directly at them. Exercise number 2. If you haven't got a partner, this is where a mirror would be ideal. So instead of having a partner against the white wall, you're standing against the white wall and you have a mirror in front of you so that you can look at yourself and try and see the aura that way. Same thing again, relax the eyes, focus centrally on the face or the body and be aware of what's in your peripheral vision, an inch or two to the side of their head or their body. Okay. Clothes, by the way, you might find it's easier if you don't have too many clothes and things on. You might find it easier at the head, especially if they're bald like me. It might be a bit easier to see the aura there compared to where you have clothes, especially if they're fluffy clothes or interesting colours that might sort of make it harder for you to see the colour of the aura. Okay, so that's 2 exercises. Okay, so another thing that my wife has just pointed out, it can be harder to see if there's a bit of a shadow. So I think the shadow's this side of my body, right? So it might be harder to see the aura where there's a shadow. So you can move yourself to move the shadow. So lighting can make a big difference. So get a table lamp, get something that you can move around so that you find an ideal position for you. But even in this case where there's a shadow, you still have one side of yourself that's a bit easier to see. And for some people it might be the case that you find it easier to see it on the shadow side, actually. And of course, if you get better at seeing the aura here, then you can slowly train yourself to see in darker lighting. So it can actually be useful to compare left and right anyway. So, exercise number 3 is very simply do this same thing, but with aura goggles or aura glasses. So I've done a video in the past reviewing aura glasses and what I think about them, whether you need them or not. To cut a long story short, you don't need them, but they can be useful in different lighting conditions. So sometimes in certain lighting conditions it might make it easier for you to see certain colours that typically you see in that etheric layer of the aura. But in other conditions I actually find it makes it a bit more difficult. Generally speaking, I would say why not try it anyway, because as long as you don't buy from certain companies that mark the price up, they're pretty cheap to buy aura glasses. Please do go and look at that video because I do have some advice about where to buy and what to look for. So yeah, try these same 2 exercises with aura glasses. You might find that that's easier. It might be harder, but you can try. You can try in different lightings. Exercise number 4, and there's many more exercises by the way I can give you, but these 4 exercises I find are enough, and I don't want this video to be too long. But the next exercise is actually to look at trees. So let's go and look at some trees, shall we? Okay, so to save ourselves going outside, we're just doing it through the window, but we've got some nice big trees here. Trees are fantastic for helping you see auras. Some trees are better than others though. So a big tree is going to have a lot of energy flowing through it. It's going to have a big aura. So, you know, with the human body, depending on how healthy we are and vibrant we are, it can be, you know, 1-2 inches at the most, the thirst density of the aura. So quite close to the body. With a tree, it can be pretty big. It can be several feet away from the tree. These trees, especially now that there's no leaves on them, and because of the shape of them, it can be a more difficult type of tree to see the aura with. But definitely on certain conditions and certain days, if you especially look more towards the top of the tree, it might be much easier to see the aura. But like I say, that shape might make it difficult for you to see. So that's not the most ideal tree. So what we'll do is we'll look through a different window and show you a better tree. Okay, so here we are back in our bathroom because it's got a lovely view of the surrounding area. So I do recommend fir trees. Fantastic for seeing auras. They keep their leaves all year round as well, so they've got quite a nice consistent shape. So it can be quite easier to see. And especially in this case with a lovely white background against what we can see, and of course the sky, especially on a clear, nice sunny day, it can be very nice to see the top of the tree as well. So this is a more ideal tree, I would say. And of course you don't have to go outside. You know, we're nice and cozy inside, especially when it's minus whatever degrees outside. And yeah, so you can go closer, but you don't need to go that close. The aura of trees is really nice and strong. So in this case I can see the whole of the tree. And just like with the exercises we did in person with another person, look at the middle of the tree, but look at a spot where you can look at the middle of the tree and still see the edges of the tree with your peripheral vision. So same thing again, look at the center, be aware of what's happening in your peripheral vision around the tree, and it should be easier to see. If you find your eyes wandering and trying to look directly at the peripheral, at the edge of the tree, at the aura of the tree, then you might find it harder. So bring your eyes back to the center of the tree and keep being aware of what's in your peripheral vision with the tree. Over time, with the more you practice this, the quicker it will get to you being able to see the aura and that pulse, it brightening and darkening, however many seconds it may be for whatever plant or person you're looking at. And of course, you will see more detail, you will see a bigger range, and gradually with time you will start to be able to see auras with your central vision too. And that takes a bit of time usually.
Could I do just a normal house plant if I...
You could, yes. So
okay.
My wife's asking the question, if you don't have trees around you, you can, yes, use a normal house plant. And the strength of the aura around it will be dependent on the health of that plant. So plants, generally speaking, have pretty decent auras, so long as you look after them. Especially if plants are in nature, then they tend to have a nice strong aura. House plants can vary quite a bit depending on how well you look after them. Yeah, so I hope that's useful. There's 4 different exercises you can try using plants, using another person to look at, using a mirror to look at yourself, and of course any of those methods you can also use the aura glasses as well, which might make it easier or harder depending on the lighting conditions outside and or inside. If there's any questions, please pop them in the comment section, or you can email me of course. And if you'd like to continue supporting this channel, please do like and subscribe.